Well, good morning, folks. Darren Doherty here. Hope you're all well. We're posting onto the workplace this morning on the homepage as well, so some of you will be able to check in there. I'll just get our chatty stuff up. Just bear with me. I'll just get these panels which have just disappeared back up. Don't know what's happened to the rest of my panel. Participants. There we are. Well, I've got Jason on the line this morning, so I'm gathering that. Well, Jason, just put your hand up if you've got a question to add, because you're it at this moment, mate. So you've got the floor if you need. Otherwise, this is going to be a very short session. Very good. Well done. All right. Okay, mate. Whenever you're... Yeah, good, mate. Yourself?
Pretty good. All sorted out with the imaging, thanks to Georgie.
Yeah, Georgie does an amazing job, doesn't he? He's
yeah, definitely.
And it's nice to have someone working in an opposite time zone, because you wake up and you've got a nice little present.
Yeah, exactly.
That feels for me anyway. So that happens for me every day. So no, we're very grateful for all that Georgie's able to contribute, which is a lot.
Yeah, so I don't have much to add or anything at the moment. I'm just logging in to listen.
Oh, okay.
The holistic context this week has been really good.
Yep.
The book that I've been reading, or actually I've been doing the audio because it's a whole lot easier. I can work and listen at the same time.
Yeah, good.
That's going really well. Started my...
Which book's that?
That's the Holistic Management.
Oh, right. So that's on audio book now, is it?
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah. The link you sent me, I ended up going to Amazon.
Right.
It all didn't work. So anyway, I hear what you say about that.
Yeah.
So that's really good. And I've started a holistic grazing plan. Not that I've got everything worked out in regards to my paddock arrangement and the whole plan, but just
that's okay. I think it's the process as much as anything else. So just at least having that before you, and even if you just go through it and just go through the process of all of the questions, that in itself is a huge set of instructions. So and it's certainly going to be much harder this time than every other time that you do it. So
yeah, okay.
But yeah, it's a fantastic process, and I remember the first time I went through it, which was probably about 2007, so not that long ago, and it was like, wow, it fits with anybody who's a bit diagnostic. It fits with that type of those who feel that, but who have mental processes that are attracted to that sort of thing. But I think what it'll do, probably the biggest thing that'll be really interesting for you will be the paddock quality, and just that stocking rate that you'll be able to withstand. That'll be sort of borne out once you start the plan. But I wouldn't be too hung up about the fact that you don't have the paddock layout and whatever. You've got what you've got.
Yeah.
Just do the best you can. And
I try not to get.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, balancing that up with with Graham's advice on the gut fill and the manure scores and stuff, which I think is real genius, because ultimately that's the rubber hitting the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying not to get hung up on too much. So no. I don't know if you realise, but in context, I don't actually purchase the property for another week. In a week's time, we actually get the keys and we're good to go. So,
well,
I've been trying to do so much.
I think based on what you've done so far, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Have you camped there or anything, or?
No, just a couple of visits, lots of drive-bys. But yeah, that'll happen next Tuesday, and then next week we'll have 5 days up there to start with.
Oh, nice. So there's, forgive me, there is a shed or something there to stay in? or are you just going to?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a house. Well, there's a house to stay in. Well, yeah, it's pretty good.
So you're because when I read your thing, you were saying you had to build a house. Am I right?
Well, we intend to build a house in a few years' time.
Right. Okay.
That'll be another dwelling.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So all exciting stuff. And
it's.
I wish I would have been doing this 6 months ago. But anyway.
It's okay. Look, the timing is the timing, but no, it's a very exciting time. I mean, every time I've bought a new property, it's been it's just there's an energy that you can put into it, and I think that's what I really value about this space is that having been through that ourselves, and then having guided people through the same process, it's really helpful to be guided in a way because as you know, there's a whole industry out there full of people who are looking to take your capital from you to help you develop, or to help use up some of that energy that you've got running through your veins right now.
Yes.
Be it fencing or water or troughs or gear, whatever it is. And I think that's a really valuable thing about you investing in this program is that the will have you question as much as possible any number of those decisions, which will save you a lot of money and a lot of anxiety over time, because we know so many people who have marched forward at this moment and just bought everything, and in a very short time they sort of look at their bank balance and go, well, and they've got a property full of gear that they maybe use once, and they've got concrete posts everywhere and troughs and all this stuff that was sold to them, and that they're empty, and it's a real struggle from there on. So that's probably the best advice I could give you right now. But yeah, you're on the right track. So
yeah, definitely. I can't tell you how much I appreciate how this is all working out for me. Just finding you. I remember you mentioning about how you're fishing to, I don't know, through your social media or whatever, to find people who need this process. And I just stumbled across you. I was just watching YouTube channels and then stumbled across it. And even when I saw you first, I still didn't realize that this is what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway. Well, we're not on Channel 9 News every night, so or tonight. I'm not suggesting you watch those shows, but you know what I mean. It's
yeah, true.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it'll happen in the future.
Yeah, well, word of mouth is a good thing as well. So I appreciate that.
In a side note, did you spend much time up in Crystal Waters over the years, or?
No, I wouldn't say I have. I think I've been there. I think I've been there once, maybe twice. I used to manage a project in 2002, I think it was. Yeah, 2002. Lisa and I and our kids moved up and managed a property in Mullaney, which is not that far from there. Well, because Crystal Waters is at Conondale, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah, and we this guy offered me a lot of money to go and build an organic health farm. So I thought, I hadn't had a job for like 15 years, and consistent money seemed like a good idea at the time. So I took up the offer, and Mullaney's a lovely spot. So
yeah, definitely.
So we did that, and I went out there a couple of times. Robin Clayfield, who is on the Agrarians workplace, I don't think she participates that much, or I haven't seen her at least. She's a good friend of ours, and she is out there. So we went out to visit her. It's an interesting place. I mean, I think Max Lindegger did the design on it. It's to me, it's a terrifying place from a fire perspective. And it's always interesting to look at other people's designs and see how it was laid out. I'd certainly do it a lot differently. But that said, I've got properties I did 10, 15 years ago that I'd do very differently too. So, but I think, look, inherently, it's it's there. It's a bit of an enclave. I think socially, from what I understand, it's got some interesting things going on in terms
It's a bit clicky, I realised. So.
well, not just that, the second generation, because obviously the first generation, I think it was started in the 80s.
Mm.
So a lot of those people would have, well, they would have been in house buying age, which is, 40 to 60. And so those people, that's 30 years ago now. So those people are either in the ground or retire, somewhere else.
Yeah,
So so a lot of people have bought in there, and a lot of properties were through the roof in value. So, you get and that's the evidence on other properties I've seen too. You get a next generation of purchasers who are completely different in ethic and mindset to the founders.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been a bit of a struggle for them too.
Fair enough.
Mm.
It was just an inspiration for us, 20 years ago when we sort of came out this way. And for some reason, I think I'd met you before. You didn't know a guy, Mikhail from Yamundi, an old German bloke, a young German fellow. He's a bit older now, I suppose.
Mikhail, yeah. I've met a few Mikhails. I thought you were talking about Mikhail as the old Collingwood coach, Jock Mikhail. Mikhail, no. If I saw his face, I'd remember him probably. Yeah. But yeah, that's a long time since I've been up at Yamundi. That's like close to, well, about 17, 18 years ago now. So
yeah, fair enough. Right on. Holistic context. What else? Other questions do I have?
Well, the question I had of you, I think might have in part answered it, but when you looked at I think there's 4 different templates that I put together there.
Yes.
What made you go with? Well, you looked at the 4. Which? Why did you go with the one that you went with?
It just seemed easier to me. The colour one that I first received. Let me just go and click on them so I can.
Oh yeah, the one that was in a
coloured down the bottom.
Yeah, the whole checklist one that wasn't separated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just found that it didn't gel with me, and I was a bit confused by in the bottom part where we had to put down what we had to do. I don't know, some things I can do really easily, and some things the blocks for me. And so I just chose the one that didn't have the block, so I could just start this process. And
yeah, well, that's interesting because we don't often get the opportunity to say, all right, well, here's 4 different ways to do something. And so I'm really glad that we were able to, thanks in part to people like Helen Lewis and Javin and Harry and others who have developed templates that we've been able to use. So, but it's important to me that people's needs are met and that you have the options before you to be able to meet those needs. So so it was good to be able to do that, which is, as I said, not normal. Usually there's just one template, and that's what you have to fit into. But
yeah, thankful for that too, I suppose.
Yeah. No, things have to resonate. Yeah. Cool.
Yes, that worked well.
Good. All right. Well, you're going to be looking at some of Georgie's maps now, so have a bit of fun with that, mate.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
What week do we get into that sort of stuff?
Next week. Next week is, from memory, next week is week 4, and that is farm maps and the keyline plan. And then the week after that is site analysis, which is perfect timing for you because you'll be out on your site and you'll be running around it like a blue-ass fly anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll guide you in on that week so next week's about getting your farm map together and looking at it through the lens of keyline and keyline. The keyline, we use a very specific way of analysing the landscape in keyline geography. So it's not developing a keyline plan per se; it's just developing the keyline geography of the place.
Okay.
So that's a really fundamental part of the way that we plan properties. And then the week after that is where where we'll talk about site analysis, and so that'll talk about landscape function and some of the bullseye stuff, and checking out knowing how to look at the place and what to look for and all of that, and how to look at it, what process you might take. And then the week after that we do water. Okay. So that'll be the last week before we have our break. So yeah.
Very good. All right. Thanks, mate.
No worries at all.
Keep watching this morning and
just keep participating. That's all. It's great what you're doing. We really appreciate you participating as you are.
Thanks, man.
Good on you.
Cheers.
Thanks. All right. Anybody else got a question this morning? Thank you. Ben, Garth, Chris, Pablo, Ray, and Samantha. Anybody there got a question? Just use that little hand symbol and we'll get you on board there. Oh, Ben. All right.
We there?
We are.
G'day, how are you?
A fellow Datsun man, as we've discovered on the side.
Yeah, well, I don't think mine will be on the road for quite a while.
No, well, I've got to take the motor out of mine this weekend, so
had fun with that.
I'm just on the 1600 only, but yeah,
they're very, very, very easy to work on, though.
Yeah. No, she's all. Yeah, I've got a starter motor nose cone came off, so ring gear or flywheel's loose, so we've got to get inside and have a look.
Making a noise, yep.
Yeah, quite a metallic. Well, it took the nose cone off. So
well, hopefully it's just alloy and it'll be bouncing around and not.
No, we got it out. We got it out.
Oh, okay.
Thank God.
Yeah, well done.
So
I came in a couple of minutes late. I just I missed the start of.
We didn't have much. So
Robert's question.
Oh no, that was Jason.
Oh, sorry, Jason. Yep. You mentioned there was 4. So where we're at with the coursework.
Yep.
I've done most of the context.
Yep.
For me, because I said last week, Helen and I were going to do it separately to start with.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw where you've just navigated to now on that templates was my question. So I looked at the amalgam one, which I think is put together. Looks like 3 different sort of Harry
Green, who's one of the Regrarians team and a Rex alumni. He did the Rex with us in New York in 2016. So Harry put one together and he put it up I think at the start of this week, I think it was. And so he shared that with everybody to sort of have a bit of a look at the way he done that, which I thought was really useful because Harry's a unique individual, which helps as well, as we all are, but he's particularly unique. And he won't mind me saying that because I've told him that before and he knows it. So I just thought that what he'd done in it was a real insight into Harry himself, in that he was able to pull together, go through all of the work that's been done so far in the 3 Rexes that precede this one, and sort of take the bits out of it that worked for him. And I thought that was a really good approach. So I basically just stripped that out of his and used his template, and did the same for Helen and the one that we developed in the Regrarians Handbook, which in itself is a bit of an amalgam. And then the Savoury Institutes, which is I've just used the pure Savoury Institute one. So you might say Helen's one is really, perhaps you might say, the original holistic goal, holistic context method. Ours is heavily influenced by Bruce Ward's methodology. The late Bruce Ward. And then the Savoury Institute, well, that's the sort of latest refinement, you might say. And then Harry's combined some of Javan Banakovich's holistic life context, which he delivered in the first of the 2 Rexes, the 10-week ones. So
which is more at the start, which is more of the life sort of probing questions, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And Javan is a really, really uh, intelligent guy. I would say he has a very high intellect, and so that comes through. If you see him speak, or you were to go through any of his webinars, then you'd understand exactly what I mean. But for some people, it's perhaps just overreach, because a lot of people just don't want to go that far, or it might seem superfluous to them, and that's again, when I've come to this point, I've sort of gone, all right, well, you've got to meet people where they are and give people options. I think this is really important. When it comes to how you design your water layer, there's only so many options. You know what I mean? You're either going to go channels or pipes. You know what I mean? But when it comes to holistic context development, and this is why we added the option for people to go and look at the what's it called? The one that Dr. Jordan Peterson's mob have developed as well, as another option, because you've got to find a way. The most important thing is that you do it, whatever it is, and that's put down on paper what your constitution is, however you do it. I think that's critical, so that we know the rules of your game and you know your rules of your own game. We don't really care how you do it, but I think it's really important that you do.
Yeah. Have you had experience where you've been working with people either on, in Rexes or whatever, where you have had a couple where they're preparing them, starting to do it independently, or it might be with a team, where you've got different contexts for the same project?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's question
that's
for you about.
Well, that's usual. I mean, and that's what we encourage, is that, and I think Ray and Samantha's example that they gave early in the week, where they approached it, where they basically did a popcorn they did a workshop together to pull their own context together. I think that's a really great method. But then for other people, they're going to need their own time and their own place, because it may be where they're at in their relationship as well, because everyone's at a different point in their relationship. So, each of us have got very different relationships with our significant others. So, so again, for some, it's going to work that you can, popcorn onto a whiteboard or butcher's paper, and do it that way. But then for others, it's going to be a very personal thing, and you'll need to go into a room separately, fill out the thing, work through it yourself, and then come back together, and then pull the bits out of that that might make your farm's holistic context, as opposed to your own individual one. I think the other part of that too, Ben, is that for some people, they're going to need a facilitator as well, just because of the relationship dynamics. So someone in between. That's going to come down to the function of that relationship at that point, but also the kind of personalities who are being worked with here.
Yeah. So I probably alluded to it, but I guess for us, Helen works off farm, and I currently work a little bit off farm just to pay the mortgage, but largely, I guess in the future, what our future will look like is me being full-time here, and Helen will still be part-time off.
That's not an unusual scenario.
No. So I guess in terms of actual devotion of time and energy, it's probably 80% me and 20% Helen. So
that said, but then financially, Helen, that'll be
the other way around, I think.
Well, and that's right, and that's why. I mean, apart from the fact that you're a loving couple, it's also that you've got to balance. That when it's about balancing the stresses as much as anything else, I suppose. That, and that's what preparing things are. It's like use the analogy of repairing cars. You'd use a torque wrench at times on some nuts and bolts, because they're in positions of that where if you don't, then the stress will test the fact that you didn't.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, I think, in the sense to what we're preparing here, is that you're preparing things in the cool. When Javin would be able to describe this because he's so much smarter than me and knows all of the brain stuff so much better than me. But there's moments in time, the way I look at it, when you have your cool self and your rational self, and you're able to prepare these things in outside of the heat of battle, as it were.
Yeah.
Because when the battle's on, if you don't have rules for battle, well, then the gloves are off. And that's why I think it's important to for everybody as individuals to get their considerations down, because otherwise you don't know when things get tough or a bit cranky, then you don't have anywhere to go, and that can be dangerous. As we all anyone who's been in a long-term relationship knows what I mean by that. It's there are stress points, and that's just the way it is. So you got to have something that helps you with that. Now, so in the past, that's been people's faith, or it's been some gender inequality as far as decision making is concerned, and so on. Those traditional forms, but in contemporary society, as we many of us strive for more gender equality in relationships and so on, we have to negotiate that, and I think this process really does help with that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
because your wife, if you go back 100 years, having your wife being the major breadwinner, for example, is not usual.
Yeah, no, it's wasn't the social sort of standing.
No, and so, and of course, she comes and lives in the place. I mean, you're sharing a dream together and a life together, so it's absolutely important that everyone's involved.
Yeah, I'm just sort of. It's interesting. We haven't had a lot of time together this week because she's been away. She also has 2 teenage kids from her previous,
gotcha.
So that makes
yeah.
So, and they don't live with us,
no.
So she has a sort of second life outside the farm as well as working.
Yeah, right. How old are those kids?
They're 13 and 14.
Girl and boy, or
girl and boy? They were born pretty close, but they go to school down the Sunshine Coast. And
so how far away are they?
Their actual place is about an hour and a half.
Sheesh.
It's about an hour and 15 to school from here.
Yeah, so right.
When they come and stay for the weekend, it's a very early start on the Monday morning to get into school. So,
that's
time for her, and a lot of driving around. And,
well, she's a mother.
And now we've got Archie as well. So
yeah.
I was watching a group of 4. Are they yellowtails or red tails? I think they're yellowtails.
One of the two. The red or yellow is quite different, but
they're just stunning. You don't often see them.
Yeah, well, thanks for the Poinciana photo this week too. That was really lovely. I think a lot of people enjoyed that.
Running around procrastinating from doing my homework.
No, it's not. It's you've got to have a bit of that daydreaming time and sort of.
For sure.
You've got to smell the sights in order to be able to get the big picture sometimes. So we'll just put that down to research time, Ben.
I've planted a couple here. I've noticed they're just in my experience, they're quite a slow growing tree. They're an ornamental tree, obviously.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of, to my knowledge, I don't have a lot of uses for.
I don't think that they'd be a bad paddock tree.
No, that's what I was kind of thinking. And I saw that you had a post in there on shade trees, and I thought, I wonder if that would be on the list.
They're not a honey locust or one of those multi-purpose species, but it doesn't always have to be like that. I've been very impressive. There's a property, the Coglan's, out at near Bridgewater, not far from us, and someone about it, and they've had the property since the Judge Owarung had it, and they've got a paddock which has got really old bunyias in it, and this, that, and the other, and it's just amazing to see It's probably 200 acres, and it's got this mishmash of exotics and northern Australian plants like bunyias planted across it at about 50-metre spacings.
What state's that in?
In Victoria, yeah.
They've got bunyias down there. Wow.
Oh, yeah, bunyias. Yeah, well, gee, don't get me started. No, araucarias were all over Australia at one stage. They were also in Antarctica up until about 20 million years ago. So,
wow.
Yeah, you'll find Willemia nobilis, which is the Willemia
pine,
that they found west of Sydney. There, that the fossil pollen of that goes back 200 million years, and it was found all over Australia and in Bass Strait. So, yeah. So, yeah, they're very old plants. They have a very high capacity. It's probable that climate change events over time and fire have restricted the range of bunyias, but their actual capability is much greater. Similar with macadamias. There's macadamias growing in Hobart. Yeah, so you've got to understand the fire ecology and the outcomes of that fire ecology in Australia to understand the shrinking of particular types of flora across our
restricting them to various
restricting them to places where geographically the fire has not been able to affect them, whereas their range was significantly larger in times previous.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. Anyway,
I just before I go, just one quick question or feedback. What I've been missing since the start of the Rex is some sort of representation of everyone who's in the group.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I think I had I might have been remiss in doing that because I had
50 odd people you said, but for me, like, I'm quite visual, and it'd be awesome to have like everyone's addresses on a map and they're just dots, and you could drill down and click on.
I don't think we did it in this one. No, we had the Rex. We had that on a previous Rex, and it wasn't very well submitted. And what we do have, and what we ask people to do, is to go to places.
Yeah.
And just type in what is it called? Is it places? Yeah. Go to places and just fill in your stuff there.
Yeah.
And if you want, one way that you can get that into the planner thing is to just use the share button and just share that. Just go planner.
Oh, yeah.
Regrarians planner subscribers.
Yeah.
Right? And just put it in there and then you can share. I think that's probably instead of having sort of another Google sheet, which sort of doesn't really go anywhere. That's what
I was thinking more of like a clickable map that I don't know.
Well, we've talked about that as well, but that's another project.
Too much work.
It's another project for somebody.
I just thought it'd be cool because, like, most courses you have a bit of an initiation or an intro where it's difficult when you've got 50 people. Okay, you got 2 minutes to introduce your farm. Well, that's 2 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone's going to tune out by the fifth one because
because everyone's got the best farm. I know.
Yeah, but it'd just be nice. I like hearing Jason before. It seems like he's in southeast Queensland, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There
is. That's why we've asked people to go and introduce themselves to the places, but realise too, look, that's the value of having the subscription thing as well. Normally, when you say, normally you do that introduction, well, normally you're doing a short course. Here you've got a year.
Yeah.
So it'd be great if people used up or, started to use the resources, but don't feel like you have to do it all in 5 minutes. But I like the idea of having a map. It'd be great if Google Earth was interactive like that. We were talking with someone about it before, and I've discussed it many times. It would be great if Google Earth had similar capacities to Google Drive, in that you could have one Google Earth layer or folder, whatever, that multiple people could interact with. like change.
Yeah.
Because then I could have something like you've just described really easy, in which, you go and put your pin on the map, and that map or that pin might have, because when you go into Google Earth, actually, let's give me an idea.
You could just have like not a one pager, like a half pager for each farm, and you hover over the pin.
The way you could do it, just thought of a way, I think. So if I put a pin here, I'm just doing a project up at Myockham in North South Wales. Is that how you say it? Myockham. So if you put,
we rented a place on Coolamon Scenic Drive right there, actually.
Yeah.
Living there
now we're doing a map for them. So we could potentially, now you bring it up, you could say put Ben, right, and put whatever the name is that you're using on the account. So you put Ben Blackburn, right? And then what you can do is, in the description, you can write the words about yourself and about your farm. So, 15 hectares, blah, 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 growing macas, your sort of vital stats.
Yeah.
But then what you can also do is you can also add an image. So you can go and add, what's this one here? Is that embarrassing? Let's soon find out. No, that's right. So you could go and add an image to that. Now, if we just look at what that's going to look like, so when I click on that, I come up with a couple of old dudes sitting on the couch with new footballs. So we could certainly do that if people wanted to, because what I could do then is I could gather all of them and put them into one folder on Google Earth, and then have that folder, which I would manage and just update it periodically. That's a way. So yeah, thanks for that instigation on yet another project which I need to have.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, thanks, mate. All right.
Very good.
Okay, well, very good. Thanks, mate. We'll look forward to what's next.
Yeah, we'll get some coursework to you when we've hoping this weekend we can sit down together. We just haven't had any quiet time, just the two of us.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So I've been through my bit, but I've given a different. I think I've confused Helen, because I've given her a couple of different templates, but I haven't actually. We haven't had the time to sit down, like you say, workshop it a bit and go through and trying to eke it out. So it's coming. It's coming.
No worries. All right.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Pablo. Yes, it would be good, but someone needs to manage these things, and right now, it's probably. Yeah. Anyway, someone needs to manage it. We'll talk about that later. All right. Who else we got? Garth. Just allowing you to talk. Garth, unmute. Oh, you there, mate?
Oh.
No, still got Ben. Got rid of him. Sorry, Ben. Unmute Garth.
Is that better?
Oh, that's better, mate. Yeah, I just keep pushing the button. It's one of those things where you push it and it doesn't work, and so I keep pushing it. And I think, Anyway, so how are you, mate?
Yeah, good. It's 4:41 in the morning here.
Oh,
so
that's
love waking up with you. It's
I don't know how to take that, but anyway. You might need to look around your local community for something better, mate.
Well, I was just doing the who has the secondary powers of veto stuff.
Yeah. Oh, right. There you go. Yeah.
You were on top of the list there.
Hopefully I'll shift off there pretty. Yeah. All right. So you got this question: could I talk about the broader links between the scale of permanence, holistic planning, and other techniques, and how you see the working together? Could you just elaborate on that a bit for me, mate? At 4:41 in the morning.
Yeah. No. Look, I think it's more of a question. Come up with these things at 10 o'clock at night as well. But I think it's more of, can you just, I don't know, how you see tying in the. I obviously, and you yourself came from permaculture and then we're stepping into this farming as completely new farmers. So we did our holistic context well before we joined for agrarians, and so we've been polishing it up. But we're actually really happy with it. But the scale of permanence is something it's all fairly new to us. And I don't know, you sort of, it's not like you want to pick sides or anything like that. I just kind of
no.
I guess
I hear what you're saying. I think so. You've got an array of methodologies that are before you, right? And it's sort of wading through and trying to pick out the best of those. Is that more or less where we're going here?
Yeah, I suppose it's the how. Yeah, exactly. What parts do you take in order to form, a whole picture of
Well,
that's how you go about tackling this.
That's why we developed the Agrarians platform, because we sort of look at it as a methodology of methodologies, but in the same time, it's sort of anti-methodology in the sense that it lacks the dogma of a methodology. Because usually that's the thing, if you look at most of the aforementioned, although Keyline's probably, I wouldn't say Keyline's dogmatic, because Yeomans didn't come up with any, as I would say, principles, and he definitely didn't come up with any ethics. Whereas many of the other methods have developed both principles and ethics, permaculture in particular. To your point about, so in my own development, I came from Keyline, because our family farm was developed along Keyline. Well, the water systems on our farm were developed using Keyline principles. So my grandfather was influenced by that and set up the property in that way. And I used those systems as a child and a teenager, and young adult. And then I did formal Keyline training with Vries Gravstein and Alan Lehman, and then a bit of permaculture, and then whole farm planning, sort of the traditional soil conservation influenced whole farm planning, which really was at its zenith when the Potter Farm plan systems were developed in the late 80s, early 90s by Andrew Campbell, who's the now director of Landcare Australia. So my own pathway in all of this has perhaps been a bit more didactic than a lot of people have been, which probably is a bit of an insight into my personality as much as anything else. Whereas a lot of people, they stick in the holistic management camp, or they stick in the Keyline camp, or the permaculture camp, and I think that weakens. You can sort of see it in the way that their properties are often developed or their lives turn about. That particularly people who are new to agriculture, I think that it provides a sort of a narrowness of the spectra of opportunity. When you sort of stick yourself within a methodological box, it's like being monotheistic as opposed to polytheistic. It's like people who see absolutely no value whatsoever in Islam at all, and they won't even look at Islam as a result. Whereas, people like me, I study religions and I see some value in some of the teachings of the Prophet, right? Just as, that's taking it to another extent, but it's like that in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. So the Agrarians platform is really a reflection of ultimately my own worldview and my own state of practice. Now, how do you negotiate all of that and what to pick and choose? Well, you're kind of seeing that being reflected in the Rex, because the Rex is a distillation really of that worldview that I've come to after the years that I've been working in this. And there's bits that we suggest you pick and choose, but then there's bits that we don't. I mean, we just haven't come up with anything better. And if there is anything better, I'll pop it in there than the holistic context, for example. I haven't come up with anything better than the Keyline Scale of Permanence framework per se. You know, is there anything better than the permaculture principles? Well, there's actually multiple, and that's why I think we've got 12 different sets of ecological design principles at the start of the Agrarian's Handbook, because the permaculture principles are not the only ones that are out there, right? So we're trying to give people those options. It's up to you, in a sense, which I think is where we're at here. Set your holistic content. Well, understand our platform, which is kind of liberating. That's the way I look at it anyway. That's some of the feedback that I've been given. Number two is go through and do your holistic context or something similar to that, and then use the tools that Yeomans gave us, which are the Keyline as you'll see, the Keyline geographic analysis is incredibly elegant as a method to helping you to realize that the land itself will tell you what to do. And that is incredibly liberating once you get the genius of that. And I don't even know that Yeomans really cracked that code completely, but I think that those that have followed him certainly have. And then everything else just follows. Yeomans made a quip in 1979 when he was filmed on an ABC thing, that once you get the water right, then you get the trees right, you get the fences, the buildings, everything else follows the water, right? But the water all follows the terrain. But he never spoke about what does that follow, and that's the context. So development of context is the foundation, and then everything else follows from that. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, no, that really does. I guess, yeah, it was always we're trying to break away from that permaculture homesteading thing, and you know, we started out with this permaculture is a bit culty, and it's nice to sort of hear that
it's a bit what?
We're trying to take the cult out of the permaculture.
Yeah. Well, that's a function of the humans that are involved. I mean, you've got to separate it, I think, and this is one of the unfortunate things that's probably happened with permaculture in a sense, is that there's a particular type of person who's been attracted and has therefore dominated the permaculture space. But there's nothing wrong with permaculture at all. I think it's great. But it's the people who have pick and chose and decided to take it down particular pathways have turned it into a franchise. And it's not just a franchise of a business model, it's also a franchise of particular techniques, which is really dumb. And I think quite damaging to the brand, and, well, the brand in one sense, but also to the method itself. Not that I don't think permaculture is a method per se. I mean, it's a set of 3 ethics and, you know, roughly 12 principles. That's it. So it's a design framework. So it should be very open to interpretation, but unfortunately that's not the way it's gone because of some of the dominant characters who are at the top of its tree. Some of its high priests, you might say, or imams in one case.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And I suppose, like, thanks for that, Darren. It's appreciated. Like, I've watched all the other recs, the 13-week last one you did.
Oh, good.
It's it's awesome system that you've got, and hopefully it makes sense to us. And I suppose the question and answer stuff is really important for us because we just don't know anything. So it's a matter of going away and reading for a week and then coming back and watching the lectures and then asking a whole heap of questions. So
yeah, well, make sure. I mean, how's your mapping and all of that going? How are you at that?
Yeah, look, we're having some trouble with the actual contours because we're so flat.
Yes,
as I was saying last week. But
yeah. Pardon me. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
but we've got an image that won't open on my computer because it's so large. But Jamie's coming home soon, so we might be able to open it on hers and get 5-meter contours at least.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe one of the things. Yeah. Well, don't be afraid to open up those conversations. Either, there's two places that you could do that. One is next week's topic page, which will be, I think, called the what is that? Is it the keyline plan? I think next week. I can't remember what the topic page is called next week. Either there or geography, because the geography page, which is sort of the open page, there is where we would encourage people to talk about their geographic issues or any announcements or whatever else that they've got. So if you've got mapping issues that you want to work out in the open, we'll then use the space to do that. And people like Georgie and a ton of others will no doubt contribute, because there's a lot of geography freaks in this space, me being one of them. So we'll talk night and day about geography if you need to. And solving map problems. I mean, I've been doing computer-based mapping since 1995, so yeah, there's not much and Georgie's probably not the same length of time, but Georgie's a genius when it comes to all of this, as many of you have already found. And there's a few others as well, who are really helpful.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm looking forward to it, because it's just it's one of those things that sort of don't know where to start, and
I put a post up the other day on Dave Spicer, who's a well-known permaculture designer and he's an old friend of ours. He and I saw an Instagram post that he did. He was in New Caledonia, and he sort of made this complaint that he was out doing carrying around a bloody old level, trying to do a design using an old level. And I said, "Oh, Dave, mate, you've got to come into this. You've got to come kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Don't make work so hard for yourself. There's some stuff out there now, some tech, which will enable you, as someone who's a pretty busy guy out there doing stuff with earth moving and whatnot, to have a bit of an easier life, and do better work." And I showed him a post that we first posted in the workplace, and he wrote back and sort of said, "Yeah, I think the time has come but also to acknowledge." He acknowledged that how important it is to have a good map. I mean, the holistic context is the map of you. I think Jordan Peterson had a book called The Maps of Meaning. It's like your map of meaning. And then you've got the map itself of your landscape. We're really talking about these two coming together. So having a decent map it's an enabler in terms of you being able to make better decisions, because in the absence of having one, it's really tough. Well, it's not impossible, but it just makes life so much more. It just makes the whole process that much more difficult. And that goes back to Yeoman's times. I mean, Yeoman's missed out on a lot of clients because they just wouldn't do the mapping. Because back then they didn't have drones, and they didn't have this, and they didn't have that. I mean, it was actually really, really hard to get a contour map. So, in the 50s and 60s. Now it's so much easier. So work with us and see what we can help you with. All right.
We'll do. Absolutely.
Keep doing it until, there will be a point at which we can't go any further because of various constraints, but we'll certainly try and take you as far as you can. That's all we can promise.
No, that's heaps. That's awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, mate. Oh, do you have anything else while you're at it?
No, not that's it. Thanks.
All right, good. All right, well, enjoy your day and enjoy the sunrise.
Yeah, we'll do. It's already up.
Oh, yeah, I suppose it would be. It was up.
We're in Esperance, so we're really closer to the border than Perth. So we get up, sun's up about 30 minutes before.
Yeah, cool. All right, mate. Well, thanks very much.
Enjoy.
Okay, anybody else got anything there? We've got Jamie, Chris, Pablo, Ray and Samantha. Haven't had a go yet. I don't think I've talked to Jamie or Chris before, have I? Maybe I'll just ping them and just say good day. Huh? Okay. I like that one. Okay, allowed to talk. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Darren.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Sorry to put you on the spot there. I thought, well, might as well just sort of like one of those television shows where you just ring up people randomly. You know?
No, it's good. I've got to admit, I was just treating you like a bit of a podcast, and I've rocked up to the gym for a run.
So how's everything going for you so far?
Everything is pretty good. I'm Garth's partner, so I was just listening.
Sorry, whose partner?
Garth's, that last question.
Oh, there you go. Good. No worries.
With great relish, and it's probably the same questions I would have asked also.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yep. So have you got any points or questions of your own to ask at this stage?
No, not really. They really are sort of exactly the same things. So I think we'll probably go over our holistic context this week when I get home today.
Yeah, great.
With the perspective of the scale of permanence. And yeah, we will put a post up how best to capture our contours for mapping, because we really need to
good.
That,
yeah, please do. Yeah. Please do.
Yep.
Very good. All right. Well, enjoy I've never been to Esperance, so it's one place that's on my bucket list, but one day I'll get there. But enjoy it. You are there.
Will do.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
All right. And we've got Chris. I'm going to Okay, and then I'll come to Ray and Samantha. I just saw theirs there. Hey, Chris. Oh, I've still got Jamie. That's not working. Doesn't look like I can get Chris. All right, so we'll go to Ray and Samantha.
You there, Darren?
Here we are. How are we?
Very well indeed.
That's good. I say we because there's multiple me's.
Not touching that one.
Which Darren have we got today? Yeah. Anyway. So, question around finance. What are some methods you've come across in regards to farmers actually paying themselves? What? Farmers don't pay themselves? What are you talking about? What are some ways of structuring it? Maybe just what are you doing right now? How you obviously not paying. Is this something that's new?
Yes.
You got to a point where you've actually got some money.
No, this is in hope, Darren.
Yes, yeah.
How do we plan?
How do we plan?
So just give me a sense of how that's working for you now. You're getting money in for the products, for some of the production. You've got off-farm jobs as well?
No, we're both full-time farm.
Full-time farm. So when it comes to paying yourself, what does that actually mean? Disposable income.
Disposable income.
Yeah. Having that separate from the farm business itself. So having, money set aside for travel and money set aside for
gotcha.
Long-term plans as far as, quote unquote retirement and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Right. So has Helen worked with you on financial planning at all? Has that been something that your group's worked on?
Yeah, we do the holistic financial planning stuff. This part of it, though, I've never quite got it. So, every year we sit down and we at least attempt to do a financial. No, we haven't. A financial plan.
Yeah.
But this aspect of it is just something that's bugging me, because I just can't quite figure out like how to make it work in a business where you've got fluctuating income.
Yeah, well, that's the tough part. And I'm having negotiated the same sort of business. I mean, businesses are all pretty well the same if they're a cash flow based business. So,
yeah.
And so for us, it's been, well, I'd say from our perspective, we've probably had bigger amounts that have come in at times because of the nature of our business. You don't go and do a farm planning workshop or a tour and you get a tax problem, which I've had periodically. So because your income levels are just are high enough where tax becomes a problem if you don't plan for that, which is a whole nother part of this whole question. And it's a question a lot of people haven't even had to contemplate, is how do I deal with the tax system and paying income taxes because they haven't got any income. So I'm gathering that that's perhaps where you guys are at. And so I think that, well, this is where you may need to look at the structure of your business anyway. You guys aren't doing a CSA, or yes, you are?
We were up until recently, and we've just canned it.
Yeah, because you just weren't able to get the subscribers, or what were the reasons?
It was too labour intensive and too admin intensive.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it just didn't stack up financially.
Yeah. So have you found that the shifting to the cash flow model has changed that at all?
It's too early days. We canned the CSA at about the same time as we ran out of water.
Right.
So at the moment we've got nothing happening at all really. So we're very much in flux and so it's too early to tell.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So we've got extra time to contemplate these things, what we will do when we have got
when we have got water.
Well, so what are you living off at the moment, if it's not a rude question?
Farm household allowance.
Yeah, right. Okay. So that, yeah, right. Gotcha.
The dole.
Pardon?
The dole.
Yeah. Oh, it's not unusual. So you certainly wouldn't feel different there, and that's what it's there for. I think it's there for hardworking people to take stock, to be able to readjust, and then get back on to being food producers. So,
which is where we're at, basically.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think that the practice that I've seen, and it's really hard. Like you've made a clear point. The irregularity, which is why I asked about the CSA model, because the one benefit of the CSA is that is the distinct lack of irregularity. You've just got, but the problem is it's very different to what I do. I mean, I don't know, like for me to be able to deliver on my subscription promise, I just need to wake up every day and be able to speak, right? Yeah. That's and be able to type and do all that. You, on the other hand, you have to have water. You have to make sure that things grow and they get delivered. It's a much different and more complicated and difficult proposition for you to deliver on that than me, right? As a producer of digital content, it's relatively easy compared to a deliverer of, well, let's say, actual content, calories. So shifting that over to the cash flow model is, well, I think the lessons that you've learned from being a CSA will guide you to an extent in knowing, well, how much you need to create. Yeah. And then, but also in deciding how much things do actually cost, which leads in some part to that question I put yesterday about how much are you producing your product for per kilo, whether it's a kilo of beef or whether it's a kilo of lettuces. What's the actual cost of doing that? Now, embedded in that cost, and this is where the HM planning is is important is that it is including your, as you put it, perhaps your future resource base, so those improvements that you want to have in the future. It's also the lifestyle choices that you may want to support as well, in terms of going and taking that break, or buying a boat, or whatever it is that you need to do to nourish you off the farm. Those sorts of things. So, pardon?
There's no water. I can't have a boat.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like
I
people want to do something off farm, right?
Yeah.
So you might have horses and really lose a lot of money, or yeah. My grandfather said, and it's a principle in the book. Never lend money to your children if they have horses for fun.
Yeah, that's a really good principle.
It is. That was actually a real experience that he had. So I think that the most important thing is to try and understand what you need to produce.
Yeah. Yep.
And have embedded in that those amounts that you need, which are going to function as your disposable income, and the income, the future stuff, so super, retirement, whatever else you've got going on there. Now that's and that's the great thing about planning. Plans are always fantastic, all right. But then there's the reality, and you being able to execute on getting the actual cash in that's going to get you to that budget. Because otherwise, if you don't, then you're going to be falling back on the circumstances that you've had already, and continue to be on this allowance as your sort of backstop and primary source of reliable income. I don't know that there's many other ways to address that. I mean, it's just you just got to make. It's the old thing. You've got to earn more than you spend. But what that spending is got to be predetermined. But then the big challenge is trying to do that with regularity, and that's in large part why we decided to go to a CSA type model. Or I don't know what you call it, a community-supported consultancy or content, versus the model that we've had in the past. It's quite different, as you said. I don't know if I've helped at all, but how are the others in your group addressing this? Because it's not an unusual question.
I think there are at least a couple in our group who do pay themselves in some way, like as in pay wages to themselves. Mm-hmm. I know Helen and Ian definitely do that, and some of the other guys in the group do, and I just haven't had a chance.
The young couple who've got the eggs on that sloping block.
Yeah, the Breens, yes.
So
they do as well.
Yeah, well, but they've probably got. Well, I don't know about Helen and Ian, but I mean their business has. I mean, if you look at every household unit, if you like, CSA stands for, Jason, Community Supported Agriculture, or Community Subscription Agriculture. It's a subscription-based program where you will have usually a fixed number of subscribers who will pay you usually ahead of time for food that you will produce for them. That's broadly how that works. But if you look at Helen and Ian, and any other place, where's all the income coming from? So Helen's got income coming from a couple of external sources. Her work with the road project, her work in consulting, which is in a few different ways, and then you've got Pico's farm, right? Now, in the case of you guys, it sounds like you've got the farm and the Australian government. Is that
at this point in time without water? Yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, it's a very different scenario versus, sorry, I forgot their names again.
Greens.
The Greens. The Greens, they've got an egg business, right?
Yes.
And an egg business is a really good cash flow business.
Yes.
And so that provides a consistency of income that that a vegetable grower is going to struggle with, as would a meat producer, unless you're a chicken producer or something like that, because it's really hard to just keep the throughput. And
ongoing struggle, because we were quite diversified and had, a lot more cattle and a lot more pigs and a lot more meat chickens and a lot more hens, and so had a very, very diversified. But we were lifestyle-wise, that was just ridiculous and insane.
Yeah.
And so we pulled back to just the vegetables because we know we could make money out of vegetables, and then promptly ran out of water.
Yeah. Which well, it comes back. There's never an easy answer to this, and I would say that questions around that are, even the very blunt question: are you on the right property to do what you actually want to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's as blunt as it gets, because the capacities of the property to continually and reliably provide you with the resources to do what you want to do. I mean, if you wake up in the morning as working people and say, I want to grow vegetables, well, then you've got to be in an environment that supports that. And you've got to have resources in place that reliably support that, because otherwise some of what we're talking about here is a bit moot.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you've discussed, knowing you in the little way that I do, but I you would have been quite blunt with yourselves in that respect, I'm sure. So there's those sorts of questions, and then, all right, well, and the other one, which I suppose is part of doing the Rex, is, all right, sort of trying to establish, all right, well, we're on this property, what can we do on it which will enable us so that we are able to do some of these things.
The point that we're at the moment, it's like looking at our options from here on in to make sure that we don't get into this position again, and having more regular income as well, like how to even that out a lot more. Yeah,
well, and that's, I think, where we come to the point of saying, all right, well, it's those great ifs. All right, if I had that dam, I would be able to do X, Y, and Z, right? And that's kind of where we're at, isn't it, a bit?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, all right, and then what's the next tier of questions that comes after you've got that? And I suppose that's where you're going to, if you can get to the point where you are a reliable supplier of produce because you don't have the water concerns that you currently do have, well, then I think you're going to be in a much better position to actually deliver on this question of paying yourself.
Absolutely. And we have been, like, we know from historically, we definitely can make money out of the vegetables.
Yep.
And it's year round, because we produce.
Yep. Well, you're in a great climate to do that. Yep.
That's right. So we can produce year round.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, how much do we spend on guarding against something that happens once every decade?
Yeah, well, that's where one needs to take a very close look at the water resources, because it's a water question. It's a water road. So when you say guarding against it, well, I think the guarding against it is being very clear on the quantity of water that you actually require, and where on the property are you going to find the most reliable places to actually store that, to harvest and store that, such that you might find yourself building, let's say, 2 dams, for example, or extending. I can't remember your property well enough, but you might. I remember that spot that we went down to, which I thought looked, from all intents and purposes, looked like a really good spot. Yeah. Where there's the rushes, and the landscape looked like it was ripe for it. Are there any others? It may be even in that same valley. Are there spots on there where you can have the dam that's sort of like your working dam, and then there's your drought dam. And that sort of follows in with some of Yeoman's philosophy. He would build, the working dams, which are the ones all up in the key points and da-da-da, but then he'd always build a drought dam.
Yeah, okay.
And that drought dam would be the one that you would draw upon when the time came. So looking over it, when I went and visited Michael and Alex over in Dubbo, or north of Dubbo there a few weeks ago, we built 2 dams for them. They just had a couple of dams, the water holes, you might say, in the creek that sort of goes through the middle of their property. I'll just show you the property and then you'll understand. Where is it? Dubbo. And anyway, they New South Wales. Got it on here. Oh yeah, New Manjari. There we go. All that noise. So when they came to this property, they just had a couple of dams down in this valley that sort of goes through the middle, and we built this dam and we built that dam. So that they're both about 3 or 4 megalitres each. And so we did that, and we did that based on it being a livestock property and the volume of water that we anticipated that we would need. What they did was they shifted after that point. They weren't doing pigs at that stage. So we're going to just do cattle and sheep, and basically do trading. And so we designed the amount of water to capture into the landscape that was high and reliable in order to be able to supply those needs. Now, what's actually happened now, the rubber's hit the road and they've changed production models. So they've gone from cattle to pig, trading sheep and cattle periodically to growing pigs, is that they're producing X number of pigs, which is where they've got to now as being the comfortable limit for them to produce. It's also produces for them a profit, that is this take-home cash, that is pretty comfortable for them. So they've got to a point of equilibrium, which I think is a really nice place to be, where they've got a base level of profitability after 5 or 6 years, and now they're looking to improve that profitability by, as they have now, by installing an on-farm abattoir, right? But from the water layer perspective, that dam there got right down close to being empty. This one over here, and this is in the drought that's been had, and central western New South Wales is about as affected as badly as anywhere. They still had this one over here as the backup. So if it was a historic drought, they still would have had the water in this one to get them through for probably another 2 years.
Wow.
Right? Now,
that's just livestock consumption.
Pardon?
They're not irrigating using that. It's just
livestock drinking water, right? But the principles are the same here, that you've got to understand how much you need, right? And try and build capacity around that. That's always the first question. How much water do I need? So you're going to need to know what that figure is globally, but then you're going to need to know what that is over the worst possible scenario as well, and account for seepage and evaporation and whatnot, which is what we did broadly in this project. And so where we're at, and so with you, I think understanding what you've got, and that's going to be part of what you do next week and the week after, where you're looking at your farm map and you're looking at mapping all of the resources that you've got, and then the week after looking at your site analysis and all of that. I'd really concentrate heavily on that, because I think for you, the water layer is it. That's the key enabler of what's going to allow you to sustain life as you know it on that farm, or just sustain yourselves on that farm that you're on right now. So I'd be putting a lot of my energy and effort into that, I think. And then understanding that, you'll be able to make some, basically financial decisions about what resources you'll be able to muster to put into the development of those water resources. And hopefully by that stage, and when the rain returns and you've got the money, the water in the bank, as it were, then these sorts of questions are behind you. And you'll have another set of questions which will be less complex. It's sort of like that weak link thing.
Yes.
You fix this weak link, well, there'll be other weak links, but they won't be as weak as this one.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Does that sound reasonable? I know it's a diversion from the original question, but to me, you can't have one without the other, really, can you?
Absolutely.
You got to get to the root cause. Yeah. And maybe too, I don't know enough about the way that you're producing your vegetables, the methods that you're using, water savings measures that you're using, etc. there. That sort of thing. You may need to look at that a bit too, but broadly, it's going to be, I think, getting these water resources in place. And it might be too, the way you might look at this, if cash is tight or access to money to develop is tight, it might be that you just focus on the one that's going to give you the bang for buck right now, and the drought proofer, it comes later. Yeah, because you'll use the improvement in your financial circumstances that's got from the first one, which is really building that cash flow and building that certainty into your farm business. Then you can say, all right, well, and when you're doing your replanning on your financial front, under these new circumstances of greater certainty, you can then say, all right, well, I'm going to allocate some budget to the development of that one. Right. You might plan this. You might plan the other one, the drought buster, as it were, in this rec session. But it might be another 2 or 3 years before, or 5 years before you actually build it, because that's when you'll have the cash to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can say, yeah. Yeah. You can do what those young people down in New South Wales did. Had a party and a fundraiser, and they got $13,000. I was talking to them the other night to build a bloody dam.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was that?
What's they called? Epicurean Harvest.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they I hadn't met them before, but we're on a panel together the other night. Oh, the woman involved in that partnership, she was the MC for a panel I was on about drought in New South Wales in Sydney, and they did a sort of a Kickstarter-y type thing and raised $13,000 to build a dam, which is a pretty decent dam.
Yeah, 13 grand would make. So that should get
Especially,
you, what, 6 megs or something.
Yeah, I think they were looking at 5 or 6 megs. I think. So anyway, let's find out what you need in terms of water, and once we work that out, then we'll go from there.
Great, thank you.
No worries. Find out how much money you need too. Although I'm sure you're probably very aware of how much that is.
Very aware. Yeah.
Lots of zeros.
Yeah, lots of zeros. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thank you so much. Now, there was a question along the way there I think it came from Ben. Have you had any experience of clients who are working with the NICE scheme? Not more recently, because I just haven't had anyone more recently who's used that scheme. I personally did the NICE scheme in 1993, so I think it's a great scheme. So for those of you who are outside of Australia or don't know about the NICE, NICE is it's a Australian federal government program that's been going, I think, for 25, 30 years, and which is testament to its value, that it survived for that long as a government program. What it basically is you do a small business, you qualify. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's still the case, but you used to qualify by being unemployed, which I think is a nonsense, because any enterprising person would probably never find themselves unemployed. I mean, you just go and get a job doing something. Anyway, I swindled my way somehow. I think, I can't remember how, but in order to do that, maybe if you're on some sort of other allowance from the government, you're able to get access to it now. But anyway, you go and do a small business training course, a program in which, and I think the way it still works is you have to then, out of that, present a business or produce a business plan, which then is put forward as a proposition. And the proposition is that the government will then support you for 12 months if that business plan stands up to initial scrutiny as a viable plan. You will then get a year of income support, which is relatively equivalent to the unemployment benefit of the time. And there's various tax incentives in the whole program as well. It's a very good system, and I can't speak for it now, but I do know that a number of the people who were in the NEIS that I did in 1993 are still in business today, and they may not be in a business that they put forward, but they are still in business, which says, I think, a lot about the program and how important it is. And I think that this is, well, I'm certainly very influenced by the experience of the NEIS even today and the development of the packages that we do now, because I think that if I look at the NEIS program as it was structured, it was very similar to the RECS in that the first thing that you did was you had to do a business plan. Now, a holistic context is a business plan for yourself, really. And it puts you forward so that you are in a better position to then go and launch. Now, I would love to have a NEIS scheme for the RECS, and I've put this forward a number of times to policymakers over time who've asked me questions, including at that Sydney talk I did a couple of weeks ago. Someone said, "Oh, what would you do if someone gave you $5 billion as a policy?" And I said, "Well, I would basically deliver the RECS program, but over a longer period, and I would embed some parts of the NEIS program into that, in which if people were going to have access to funding to go and develop their properties, then they would need to qualify to do so. They would need to have business plans. They would need to have property management plans. They would need to have adjustment training, part of what this is, and so on, in order to be able to qualify. You need to show your case, and so it's not I believe certainly in a hand up, but not a hand out, and unfortunately, it often is a handout, not a hand up, and it's really important, I think, if we're going to use public funds, which are generated largely by hardworking people, that we embed in their delivery opportunities for everyone to improve. So and that's there. So that thanks for bringing that up, Ben. I don't know what it's like now, but I'm a big fan of the principle of the NEIS program. Okay. We've got Natalia on now. I don't think Natalia and I have spoken before, but I'm going to see if she wants to catch up. I've just unmuted Chris as well, but I don't know whether Chris has got a microphone, but I tried to get Chris. Chris is a he or a her. Okay. Okay, looks like I can't do anything with their sound, so maybe they don't have microphones. All right, so if anyone else has got any questions, we've got half an hour to go. I haven't checked on the website actually to see the thing there to see if anyone's got anything. Turn that off. All right. Well, I'll just give you a couple of more minutes if anyone's got a hand up or a question. Otherwise, I'll just go into the close down mode, which I might start now anyway. So. There was a couple of points I wanted to make. I'm not there. Yeah, so still, if you still have time to get the your, sorry about this. I'm just going to find everything again. You still got time to get your checklists in or your holistic context in. So and that will happen ongoingly. So if you can't find the time now, and like I said, if all you want to do out of this particular Rex is get your holistic context done and get that really refined, and then on the next Rex do something else, well, and that's completely up to you. But yeah, have a look at those context templates. I'll just show you two. Gungaloon, that's Jason's. I'll just move that. So move that to. So just save a copy, and then try and save it in your task folder. So I'll just do that. So I'll just give you the quick tip on how to do that, because some of you might not know how to. Is that Jason Patterson? There he is. So I'll move it to there. So if you want to use this one, just right click, make a copy, and you'll just wait for a minute and a copy will come up, and then right click again and then go move to, and then you'll go use this back key. Just go back, go to task folder, find your folder. So I'll just pop that into there, Agrarians Me. I'll just move that to me, and just click move here, and that's it. Okay, done. All right, and then when you go into the task folder, and I'll go to me, and there it is, right? And with that, you can just rename that if you like. So I'll just take off the copy, and I might just call this, holistic context. You might just say Darren, or whatever your name is, or whatever you want to do, right? So just play that process out, and then once you've done that, right click on it again. Oops, and just click on the share icon there, share menu. Wait for that to come up. Copy the link. Right, once you've done that, just going to get rid of a bit of stuff on here. Done. And then go into the workplace. Go to week 3. Just put in week 3 up here, and it'll come up. So click the R13 week 3, and then once you've done that, just say hi, Darren. I'll come up and just click that, and then here's my HC for you to look at or something, right? Then you just paste, right, and it's there. That's all you have to do to share that with me if you haven't done that before. It'll be the same with any files that you have. You've got a map that you got coming through, for example, just the same deal again. So you've got a map that you're looking at producing, or that you've of your property. Not wrong one. Then just go into your. Hopefully there'll be someone there. This is the 28th July. I'll just use this. It's the wrong. It's the previous Rex, but let's just go to week 4. So you got the KMZ file that you've done there. So you've been in Google Earth. You've produced your boundary map. Let's say you've done that. You've gone and used your add path tool and produced your add. So you'll go there, save place as, save that as wherever on your personal hard drive, wherever you want it to be, and then go into. So you'll save that there, and then you'll go into the into your drive. And you'll just go new file upload, find the file, because it'll take you to wherever you are, there's boundary, and then you just upload that. Once you've done that, that's one way you can do it. Once you've done that, you can then just, again, right-click, share, grab your link, paste it that way. That's one way that you can do that. The other way is that you can go to, and you paste this in week 4. So just put in week 4, because this is where we do our farm mapping. Yeah, I'm going to leave this page. And this is where you might also do add file, right? In which case you just go choose the file. As long as it's under 100 megabytes, which most of your boundary maps will be, you just click on that and click open, and that will automatically load up. And then again, just type my name and or Georgie as well if you need some help on something, and we'll go from there. Right. So they're the sort of more pressing things that you'll want to be looking at the moment. Outside of that, looks like Pablo's done some work while we've been. So outside of that, yeah, please go into the places as we suggested and have a crack there. Oh, Ben's just raised his hand, so just bear with me for 2 seconds. Hang on, just one moment. Hi, this is from Pablo. Hi there. We got our map done. We sent you an email from our topographer with a link, but would you prefer to get it on the workplace? Yes. Please try and use the workplace instead of email. Email is fraught with all sorts of issues, as we find, because there's spam protectors and there's all this bullshit that goes on with email. So please just use the workplace if you're communicating with us. It basically does everything that there's not much that we can't do in there. Well, there's nothing in email that I've seen that gives it any value over what we can do in the workplace. So just use the chat or just use it. So if you're communicating with us, please just use the workplace. That's why we spent the time setting it up. So that'd be great, Pablo. So send it to us as a link in chat if you want it private, or just put it onto, if it's a map, then it'll be on week 4, not week 3. So try and keep the topics aligned. So week 3 is a holistic context. It's not about mapping. So yeah, put it on week 4. Just as long as you tag us, all will be good in the world. And I had, hang on, chat, Q&A. Yeah, no worries. And I also had Ben. Sorry, participants. Sorry, Ben, I just had to get my stuff done there.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I might be jumping ahead a week or 2, but it's be handy sort of info for us to have at this point. The mapping I spoke to you briefly, I think, about mapping and drones and whatnot and what to do with our place, as have many people been putting up questions and whatnot.
Yep.
And I sort of took, I think just last night, I took a bit of step back from it all and thought to myself, well, hang on, looking at the mapping that I've got from the council LiDAR, and looking at how simple and small our property is. We're only on 15 acres, and of that, the parts of the property that would be beneficial to have an accurate contours for basically the orchard that I want to plant out, and the one road that I've potentially put in. I actually started applying the testing questions to a drone purchase, and I thought, well, I'd assumed that I was going to buy a drone or get a friend in to do the flight and then get you guys to process it. I thought, all hunky-dory. And then I spoke to a local surveyor about some ground control points and got a bit of a quote to put some in. And that seemed, I think he said $400, $500, $600 for about that many points. So about $100 a point. Which was sort of reasonable given that the process.
Yeah, and they're professionals and they've got expensive gear. Yep.
And he's got all the gear, and he's come out and obviously, hopefully give us some other advice or tips. But he mentioned, I mean, he's local to here. He mentioned that our council data, I don't know if it's the same as the Elvis data, but
probably is, because it's Elvis is a capture point for New South Wales for all data. So let's just have a quick look at it, so that because we're on that point. So this is the interface for Elvis, and so what's give me a
2559
2559
Anderley Road, ANDERLEIGH.
All right, Anderley Road. Yep.
And that should be in Kiora. That should pop up. KIAORA. 2 words. KIA.
Oh, KIO.
KIA, sorry.
A, yep.
Kiora, like the Mary. That's it.
Yeah, all right. Let's see if that works. It may be that it just looks for. Yeah, it doesn't like. I don't think it takes addresses, which is a bit stupid and annoying.
Popping Kiora, Queensland will do.
There we are, Kiora.
Queensland locality, the bottom one.
Yeah, there we are. All right. Now, I'm feeling hopeful. Where I see that shading means we've got better resolution. But anyway, let's zoom on in. It doesn't have an aerial either, which is really bloody annoying. So where can you see? So we're going to have to get close to where you are.
We are. I wish I could. That's not bad. You got to go. Shit.
Now the shading comes over it.
Yeah, I did. You'd have to drill down a little bit more.
I think just hang on. What does this do?
Oh, there you go.
Oh no, that's the dam. So there's Tin Can Bay Road.
Yeah, we're north of that.
So we go up.
So you're pretty close where the point is. That's pretty close.
Oh, okay. So if I zoom into that.
Yeah. So this surveyor said, "Oh, well, you've got LiDAR down to 0.5 metre on your place, or should do."
If you've got LiDAR at 0.5 metre, then that's fine. We can do anything with 0.5 metre LiDAR.
Yeah. So I'm kind of, and that was my question, I guess, to what, if that's going to be good enough, given the...
Yeah, no, it would be, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I did mention Elvis to you.
Yeah, I knew about Elvis for a while, and I've known about the Gympie Council. I actually get the data off the Gympie Council website. It gives you a data set to download.
Right. Yeah, well, it's the same here. Well, if that's the case, then that's what we'll use. So, but the thing is, so if you can go through that process and get that data, and then because I don't know the form that it'll come in.
I've already done it. So I've got a overlay in Google Earth.
Perfect. Well, you're good.
So it's all done pretty much.
Right. You can sit back and relax next week then, mate.
I think the contours came out at 1 metre, maybe.
Yeah. That's the other part of it. So if you get the digital elevation model or the DEM, so how this looks like, let's say it's, I don't know where your property is. I was just going to show you, but
yeah. Well,
let's say I do that area.
If you go, we're just south of there. If you go down to about a block south.
Okay, I'll just do that again. Hang on. Go back out. So where it says Aaron's Knob.
Yeah, to the east of Aaron's Knob.
Okay,
southeast of there.
So if I did that area, that would cover it.
Oh yeah, I can't see much with the blue, but that's. I mean, it's going to be in the same data set, so it doesn't really matter.
No, it does matter because what it does is it just extracts the data for that particular area.
Yeah.
Right. For that.
I just saying for examples. So.
Yeah. So what it does then, it shows you over here the arrays of data that are available. So there's 1 metre Queensland government data, which I'm suggesting might be that same data set, but it might not.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't captured every bit of data that there is. So if Gympie Council, for example, has done their own LiDAR data, they may not have supplied that to the Queensland government or the Australian government. might be completely their own. So find that out. But anyway, all you do here is just select that. And then what it'll do is you go download, and then that gets, and then what happens then is that gets emailed. So I've got Georgie in there already because that's who I usually send it to. Now, that's a digital elevation model. Now, when we get the DEM, we can process it, and from that, we can then turn that into a topo map of whatever interval we want, which is, whereas the Gympie Council have just, you may be able to, or they'd be able to do it. Online, I don't know whether they can, whether you can select the contour interval that's going to be most useful to you. Because for a lot of properties, 1 metre is not going to be enough. You'll need ½ metre or more, depending on the slope.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Well, I've got those data sets from both of those websites, the Elvis and the council ones. I did it a while ago, so I can't remember exactly which one I extracted. I would. I've got that stuff, so it's a case of maybe just double checking that what we've got is,
we'll just there'll be a GIS person at Gympie Council. See if you can locate them, and just ask them the obvious question: what's the data source and what's its resolution?
Because that really simplifies the whole process for us. And
absolutely. Oh no, it's a great service. I think this is brilliant. It takes so much. It's just so much more effort to from a farm planning perspective to go and generate accurate contours. So if I don't have to go out and do ground control points and all of that palaver, I'll be very, very happy, because it does add a significant amount of time to the project. I can, to give you an example, I did these 2 projects yesterday, right, which I quoted on. So this is near Myocum, and which I keep thinking of Myconium when I say that word, but it's just me. But so there's the project, right? Now that's a flight plan which is at 50 meters of altitude, and we'll be doing ground control points on that, right? So that's going to take, when it says 113 minutes, that's probably going to take 3 hours, 4 hours, and 8 batteries. So therefore, it'll take 9 to 12 batteries. Now, I'd ideally like to avoid that, which I think we will be able to, because that area is covered by the Elvis data.
Yeah.
In which case, then, I can do a 120-metre flight, which takes 28 minutes and 2 batteries. Now, when you look at the quality that I can get off 120 metres, just to give you an example, where are we? This one. So I'll just bear with me for a minute. I'll just go to there was a problem with this, but this is 120 metre flight. There we go. So this is a 120 metre flight, right, that I did last week of McIver Farm. So this is 220 hectares, and it took about 60 minutes. And that's the quality that I'm able to get from 120 metres. And that's just coming through now. So you'll see it in a minute, which is pretty damn good.
Yeah. You can see branches on trees.
Yeah, exactly. You can see individual key line rip lines and la. So, yeah, so there's a lot of value in that versus now for your property, for example, here's another option. This is a 25 metre comparison that I did last week as well. So this was from an altitude of 25 metres. And this is blades of grass sort of stuff. you can see individual blades of grass from 25 metres.
Wow.
Versus, look
at yeah.
Right. Versus the Google. We'll just get to the edge. Well, there's the edge, right? There's the 30 metre per pixel Google Earth, and then in this case, I think we're about 2 centimetres per pixel in drone deploy. So, yeah, it does depend on what you want to end up with. But my point being is that if you don't have to do ground control points, then don't. If you've got that 1 metre or less. That said, we did we used the 5 metre data as well for a property as well, and that was fine. It's fine. It's all about what your end use is. So the 5 metre resolution data is fine for doing most of the things that most of us are going to want to do with farm planning. It's only going to be when we want to do roads. Roads, you really want to be 1 metre or less of resolution. Dams, 1 metre is fine, but even then, on larger dams, 5 metres fine.
Yeah. So for us, it's road, orchard layout, and potentially a new dam. So
yeah. Well, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You should be fine with the 1 metre then.
Yeah,
which is great.
Might be. We've got a couple of 1 or 2 pads to put in, so it might be cut and fill job. But
well, that's going to be on site anyway, because you can only do so much at the planning desk.
Yeah.
The next step from that will be what you do. Then you'll be on site. You'll mark it out, and then you'll be in laser level territory anyway, because you'll be measuring things as you go. So you will shift from the map to the terrain ultimately.
Yeah, which is equipment we've got, so there's no outlay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you'll be good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, thanks for taking us through that.
That's Archie.
G'day, Archie.
It's me and him. It's me and him today.
Oh, lucky him.
Lucky him, yeah. He got sand in his nappy. He's a unhappy chappy. All right, thanks, mate.
No worries at all. All right. So Pablo, he just sent me through something there. Oh, yep. So he's sent through his mapping files. That's perfect. You can send it through privately as well. That's perfectly good as well. So, yep. Thanks, Pablo. Otherwise, I think we're pretty good. If there's anyone else got any questions, bring them up now. Otherwise, we're done. All right. No more hands up. All right. Well, I'm going to bid you all good morning. I'm heading down to Melbourne this afternoon. Just before I do, thanks to Blair at the 96 Project. He introduced us to a fellow filmmaker, so we'll be going there to watch a film, a pre-release of a new film, which is pretty exciting, which is on regenerating everything. By the guy who made That Sugar film. So we're excited to go and have a look at that this afternoon and meet the filmmakers and see what liaisons we can have there, because they've approached us to have some liaisons, which is very exciting. And apart from that, me pulling a motor out of a car this weekend, which takes me back to my youth, to do some fixing up there. Out at Jason and Belinda Hagen's. They've got a nice hoist in their shed, so that should make life a bit easier. And doing a bit of milling on the weekend as well to keep up with my daughter and son-in-law's landscaping demands. So we've got a couple of logs left. Otherwise, next week, looking forward to my favourite topic of all time, the keyline plan, and moving out of this stuff a bit, but for a lot of you, you'll continue with that. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for joining us. It was a wonderful session, as always, to check in with people and go through some great questions and scenarios. And like I said, if any of you need to do that along the way, just let me know. We can make a time, and it's very easy for us to open up a little chat. The workplace platform provides for this really well. So if any of you want to have a chat, it's got that capacity that I can just put anywhere and do a live session. Very, very easy. So we can do a little video there or whatever's required. All right. Well, with that, we'll catch you later. Enjoy the Friday or Thursday, what's left of it, and we'll catch up with you on Monday, Tuesday next week. Enjoy. Thank you.